Vice President Mike Pence visited Texas yesterday. Texas is dealing with a surge in coronavirus cases. He shared this message about wearing masks.
If your local officials, in consultation with the state, are directing you to wear a mask, we encourage everyone to wear a mask in the affected areas. And where you can't maintain social distancing, wearing a mask is just a good idea. And it will, we know from experience, will slow the spread of the coronavirus.
All right, Ben, I do want to ask you about what the vice president had to say about mask wearing versus what the experts say versus what the president is displaying. But since we got a bit of breaking news from SCOTUS, I just want to see if there's any feedback at all from the White House about this Louisiana abortion law being overturned. Have you heard anything?
So far, there's no official reaction from the White House. They've not put out a statement. The president has yet to comment about it on Twitter. There is a briefing here this afternoon at 1 o'clock, so we expect that will be asked about at the briefing if we don't hear from the White House in the meantime. Obviously, this is not the ruling the White House had wanted in this particular case, so it stands to reason that we might hear the president comment on his Twitter feed at some point today.
Mm-hmm. All right. So to the vice president and his messaging about wearing masks versus what the coronavirus task force has been repeatedly saying versus what the president has said and done, how does what we heard from the VP sort of fit into the overall White House messaging?
Well, as you just laid it out, the messaging has been muddled at best for the last couple of months on this particular topic. What the vice president said yesterday, though, is probably the most forceful advice he's ever given on the upside of wearing a mask. But what you heard in his expanded comments was still what the White House is trying to do, is kind of have it both ways, where they say, you know, you should wear a mask if your local officials and governors are telling you to do that. And the White House is saying, we want to let the local officials decide, local health departments, local mayors, local governors. They don't want to be seen as giving an edict from the White House about national mask wearing. You'll recall the president, when the coronavirus task force did first come out and say that we think wearing a mask is a good idea, it would help stop the spread. The president was at the briefing that day, and he very directly said, if you want to wear one, wear one. If you don't want to wear one, don't wear one. I won't be wearing one. So that was kind of the initial message here from the White House. And ever since then, we have really only seen the president wear a mask on one occasion, and it was just caught on camera at an event that he went to in a factory where he was required to wear one. So he has never put a mask on in a way to model that as behavior for the country. And frankly, at this point, we would not expect him to do that. He says that at this point, he wouldn't put one on. He might put one on just to spite the media because of all the coverage of it, is what he has said.
It's a great point that you make there, Ben, about modeling behavior for the rest of the country, which is generally how past presidents have performed in a moment of crises. The president also, as you know, Ben, retweeted a video over the weekend which showed anti-Trump and pro-Trump demonstrators at a retirement community in Florida. In the video, a man in a golf cart with a Trump 2020 sign yells the racist phrase, "white power." It comes in just a couple of seconds in the video that the president retweeted. The president has since deleted the post. The post was deleted, it seems, Ben, after Senator Tim Scott, the only black Republican senator, appeared on the Sunday talk shows, and even Senator Scott called it offensive that the president had retweeted this video. How is the video being received, and what are you hearing specifically from the White House about the president's behavior?
Well, the way the White House explains it is that they claim that President Trump did not hear that phrase, white power, before he tweeted that video out to his nearly 83 million Twitter followers. But you're right. The backlash to this was bipartisan. It was severe. Senator Scott did not even attempt to defend the president. In fact, he called it indefensible and said it should be taken down. And as you mentioned, within about an hour, the president did take it down. The president did not comment any further on it, so he did not explain why he took it down or defend himself, saying that he had not heard the phrase before he put it up there. But certainly this is not what the White House wanted to be talking about yesterday, given everything else that is going on in the country. We do expect to hear more about this today. I'm sure White House Press Secretary Kayleigh McEnany will be asked about this particular video that the president posted at the briefing here in just a couple of hours.
Also want to ask you about a story that was first reported by the New York Times that Russia tried to pay Taliban-linked fighters to kill U.S. troops. And the president is reacting, saying, essentially denying being briefed on it, not knowing anything about it. What's the latest on this story?
Well, this is interesting because normally in a situation like this, you would hear the White House say something about, we don't comment on issues of national security or intelligence or what the president has been told. But in this particular case, they're coming out very forcefully to make the point that the president was never briefed on this. And the president overnight added to this kind of evolving explanation. And I just want to read you what he said in his tweet. He said, "Intel just reported to me that they did not find info credible and did not report it to me." So what he is saying is that as this information about whether or not Russia was paying these Taliban fighters to kill American soldiers, he's saying that the intelligence agencies don't think that intelligence is credible enough to bring it to the attention of the president. And what we have been told by senior administration officials is that there is some disagreement within the intelligence community over the veracity of the information, that they're still working on it. That is slightly different than what the president is saying. He's being more categorical, saying that the intel is not credible. That is not what we're hearing. We're hearing that there's just a disagreement over about how credible the information is. In the meantime, we should mention that the Kremlin, they are denying this. They're calling all of this lies, and they're saying that President Trump and President Putin have never discussed these allegations.
It is a shocking report, Ben, and it just sort of it's shocking because there are a number of other reports that are suggesting that this information is correct, that are coming out of the European Union, that are coming from other news organizations, and the fact that there's already sort of a split on what intelligence officials are saying and what the president of the United States is saying. What I find it remarkable, Ben, that you're starting to see Republican senators who have towed the line for the last 3.5 years starting to question or at least demand some answers from the White House. And they include folks like Liz Cheney or Senator Lindsey Graham. What are you hearing from the White House about how some Republicans are reacting to this information and how they want some answers? They're actually tweeting at the president of the United States for some of those answers.
Yeah, Russia, whether it's Russian interference in our elections or this particular allegations, this is one of those few issues that actually unites Republicans and Democrats on Capitol Hill. And you often find the White House being the odd person out in that situation. And that is playing out here as well. You mentioned Liz Cheney, the congresswoman, tweeted out yesterday saying, OK, if the president wasn't briefed, why was he not briefed? You had her saying, who knew what when? And what are we going to do to hold Putin accountable? You heard Nancy Pelosi, the Speaker of the House, on television yesterday morning saying that this is just outrageous and that if the president wasn't briefed, once he heard about these allegations, he should have asked to be briefed. He should have asked for more information to get to the bottom of this. And Pelosi went even a step further, saying this is just another example of this pattern with Russia, where he tends to give them a pass and doesn't want to criticize them for something. Now, if the intelligence agencies conclude that this is not true, then obviously the president would have come out and criticized them for it. But I think there is bipartisan questioning now as to, are you doing enough to find out if this allegation is true? And if it is, what are you going to do about it?
Really important questions there. Ben Tracy at the White House for us as always. Ben, my friend, thank you very much.
Thanks.